Lola James was born on September 30th, 2017, to Sinead James and Daniel Thomas. She was the middle child, having one older sister and one younger sister. Lola was described as a charming, funny, and cheeky child who loved life. She was always smiling and happy, a little ray of sunshine, with a laugh that would fill the room with pure joy. Lola loved playing outside, as well as helping her grandmother in the garden, and eating the strawberries the two of them had grown together. So Lola's parents didn't remain together very long after she was born. In January of 2020, when Lola was 2 years old, there were reports of DV in the home, with Sinead and her partner at the time. A social worker went out to the home in February to make a face-to-face visit after this report had come in. While she was there, she expressed her concerns that Lola may have ADHD. She also expressed concerns for the home's cleanliness, or lack thereof. Very soon after this visit, Sinead actually broke things off with this abusive man. But she would soon find herself in another abusive relationship. On February 17th, Sinead met a new man on Facebook. His name was Kyle Bevan, and he was 28 years old at the time. After talking for only a short time, they started a relationship, like the same day that they met. And just the next day, Sinead invited Kyle to come live with her and her daughters at their home in Haverfordwest, Pembrokeshire. Yeah, live with them the day after she met this man, believe it or not. Now, Kyle Bevan was not a good man, of course. He had actually even previously threatened his own mother's life. Allison Bever, Kyle's mother, described him as volatile, and he had a long history of drug abuse. She said that he would fly off the handle whenever she would not give him money to spend on drugs, or when he expected her to steal prescription drugs from the nursing ward that she worked at. She said that during these violent outbursts, he had 4 or 5 times threatened her life. So Kyle Bevans is a self-pronounced spice head, which is a synthetic version of marijuana. It is, however, dangerous compared to marijuana, which is relatively harmless. Spice effects can include paranoia, seizures, thoughts of suicide, psychosis, and more. He also liked to abuse amphetamines, Xanax, and Valium, and Sinead would participate in the amphetamine use with him. So Kyle was a guy that you certainly would not trust, and especially after only knowing him for one day. Just taking a look at this man, I can tell you right now that I would not want him in my house. Not even to visit, never mind moving in. Things went bad real quick. There were various Facebook messages sent between Sinead and Kyle, discussing injuries to Lola while she had been in Kyle's care. He one day said to Sinead in a message that Lola fell out of her cot. He said, "She was stood in her cot and she dropped to the floor really quick. She bit her lip on the way down. I tried to help, but she kicked off." Another said, "Lola needs to get used to me, babe. I'm not the devil." I think the world of that little girl. But Lola got hurt quite a few times within the next few months. Bruises, including bruises to her eyes, a cut to the bridge of her nose, and a bloody nose. But each time, Kyle would have an excuse for it. And Sinead, even after seeing what his temper was like, still believed him. One of the times that Sinead witnessed Kyle's excessive anger and violence was when he was under the influence of various drugs, per usual, on May 14th, 2020, and he took a hammer and started smashing up the house. During this rampage, he headbutted Sinead and chipped one of her teeth. Sinead was able to take her 3 daughters and escaped to her friend's house until things had calmed down again. Kyle apologized to Sinead, saying he felt like a monster. He was so sorry, and he promised that he would change. So even after this vicious attack, Sinead believed him and decided to stay with Kyle. And on July 7th, 2020, angry and under the influence of drugs again, Kyle pushed Lola's baby sister's carriage into the road with the little girl in it. But luckily, she was unharmed. And yup, Sinead kept seeing him, even after that. About a week later, on July 16th, Sinead finally started to get suspicious of the injuries that were showing up on Lola as well as one of her other sisters when they were in Kyle's care. The previous day was when Lola had sustained the bruises around her eyes, and Kyle had simply given the explanation of, she fell off the coffee table. So suspicious, Sinead asked Kyle for his date of birth so that she could do a Clare's Law check, but he refused. And a Clare's Law check means that any member of the public can ask the police for a criminal history report on their partner and receive it. So Sinead clearly did not trust him at this point, and he told her no to giving his birth date. How do you even date and live in the same house as a person for 5 months and not know their birthday is beyond me, but... So the question is, why was he allowed to stay in the house with her children? The same day, July 16th, Sinead went to bed between 7 and 8 p.m., and she left Lola downstairs with Kyle. Yup, the same day that he refused to give his birth date for a Clare's Law check, and the day after she had sustained bruising around her eyes, she left her daughter with Kyle. Good choice. Kyle would later say that he and Lola stayed up late taking pictures with Snapchat filters, and then he put her to bed later that night. But just after midnight, Sinead heard a bang and a scream come from Lola's room. She ran in there to see Lola sitting on Kyle's lap with no visible injuries, she claimed. Kyle said that Lola had just bumped her head, but everything was fine and he would take care of it. So Sinead went back to bed. No further questions. Hours later, around 7:30 a.m., Sinead was woken up by Kyle, who claimed that Lola had fallen down the stairs, and he showed Sinead a piece of the little girl's tongue on his finger. Sinead ran into the living room to find Lola laying on the couch, unresponsive, but still breathing. Kyle decided at this time to call his mother, who he had spoken with earlier that day already, and asked her if she could call 911 because he just couldn't do it, and he had already told Sinead that he had. Sinead also placed a call to emergency services around the same time. Here is Allison Bever's emergency call as well as Sinead's.
The patient awake?
No, she's a 2-year-old that's fallen down the stairs. She's unconscious. They can't wake her up. And
Okay. Tell me exactly what's happened.
A 2-year-old, she's got ADHD. She's fallen from top to bottom of the stairs. They can't wake her up. And then she's bit the end of her tongue because they're not sure if she's fitted. But she's floppy. They can't wake her up.
And you're not with the patient now?
I'm not with the patient. They've just rang me because I've got credit on my phone to ring an ambulance now, they said.
They can ring credit. They don't need credit to ring an ambulance.
Oh, they panicked, I think, so.
And when did this happen?
This morning. I don't know the exact time. It must have just happened because the child...
What caused the fall?
The child woke up and she's fallen down the stairs, apparently. So,
is there any serious bleeding?
no, it's just a massive lump on the head.
Okay, is the patient awake?
No, she's not.
She's not awake?
She's
okay.
breathing, but she's not. She's only 2.
Okay, tell me exactly what's happened there.
Come my partner, because I was in bed. He was up with her.
Okay.
She's fallen down the stairs, she has.
Right, okay.
From the top of the stairs to the bottom, and her whole head's all swollen, and she bit the top of her tongue off or something.
Okay. Okay. How old is she?
2. I don't he's actually got the chunk in his hand.
Okay. So, just to confirm, is she conscious?
Is she conscious? I don't even... Yeah, she's conscious. She's breathing and everything. She's just sleeping. Can you go sit with her, please?
So does she wake up when you try and wake her?
She's like moves when I try to wake up, her eyes are all swollen and all.
Okay.
I'm really scared.
Okay. How far did she fall?
From the top of the stairs down to the bottom.
Okay. What caused the fall?
I had this bloody dog that I had at barged there and she just fell.
Okay. Is there any serious bleeding?
Kyle, is there any serious bleeding? Is there any serious bleeding? No.
Okay.
It's just bruising in her head also in her eyes.
Okay, so stay on the line and tell her exactly what to do next. Do not move her unless she's in danger, and do not splint any injuries. Can I take her name?
Yeah, it's Lola James. Don't move it.
The paramedics arrived at Sinead's house fast, only 5 minutes after Kyle's mom had actually made the phone call. When they got there, Kyle not only claimed that he was her stepfather, but he also told them that she had just tripped over the dog and fallen down the stairs. But here's the thing. If she was sleeping, like he had said, and she just got out of her room and fell down the stairs, not sure how it would have happened because she had a baby gate on her door. Unless she knew how to climb over it, but Sinead never said anything about that. The first responders transported Lola to Withybush Hospital in Haverfordwest. Once there, Kyle became aggressive when doctors started asking him about Lola's injuries. You know, like doctors need to do to treat a patient. While there, he threatened a nurse and told her that he would rip up her papers after the nurse told him that they would be shared with other agencies, including social services. More than 100 scratches and bruises were recorded on Lola's body, and she had extensive damage to both her eyes, with the injuries to her brain comparable to those found in car crash victims. Lola's injuries were highly suspicious and non-accidental. One doctor who actually examined her said that she was the most battered and bruised child that she had ever seen in her long career. As I had said, Kyle was telling doctors, as well as police now, that Lola had just tripped over the dog and fallen down the stairs. And he only felt partially responsible, he said, because he was busy getting her a bowl of cereal at the time. You should feel fully responsible even if that is the real story, because you're supposed to be watching her. That's your job if Sinead left her in your care. Lola's injuries were found to be so severe that she was transferred over to the University Hospital, Wales in Cardiff around 11:15 a.m. As Lola was taken down to this hospital, Sinead traveled to be with her and Kyle stayed at home. At 3:15 p.m., Kyle messaged Sinead asking what she was going to tell police to make sure that her account was going to be the same as his. Later that day, both Sinead and Kyle were arrested on suspicion of child neglect, and both of them were brought in for questioning. That day and into the next, police crime scene investigators went to the house and found that despite the fact that the property was dirty and untidy, the bathroom appeared to be spotless as though it had been recently cleaned. Officers also recovered a child's wet, vomit, and blood-stained gray snowflake onesie, which was found in the corner of the living room. And for whatever reason, Kyle, who was out on conditional bail, decided he was going to send threatening text messages to Lola's real father, Daniel, saying he was going to beat him. A few days later, on July 21st, 2020, at 1:18 p.m., Lola passed away. She had succumbed to her terrible injuries. She was 2 years and 10 months old. Both Sinead and Kyle were out on bail until April of 2022. On that day, they were both rearrested and charged with murder and causing or allowing the death of a child. Following their arrests, they both appeared a few days later in Swansea Crown Court. They both pled not guilty to the charges against them, and Kyle remained in custody, while Sinead again got out on conditional bail. Their trial would not begin until March of 2023, and during this trial, the judge would say, the assault was sustained, deliberate, and violent, and included the use of weapons. But Kyle Bevan still claimed he was innocent, but had no evidence to prove that he was. The jury were also shown photographs that Kyle had taken on his phone that showed marks on Lola's back, as well as extensive swelling and bruising to her head, eyes, and lips. It was discovered that sometime in the night, Kyle had hit Lola so hard in the side of the head that it had caused brain bleeding, as well as bleeding of her ear. He also had shaken her back and forth with such force that he caused brain damage. And it came forward in court as well that instead of immediately calling an ambulance to try to save the toddler's life, instead, Kyle had tried to cover his tracks. He had searched the internet for information about head injuries before taking pictures of her limp body and calling his mom. At 4:26 in the morning on July 17th, the day that Lola had been taken to the hospital, Kyle had taken pictures of the injuries on her back, and at this time, she was still conscious and standing. Then at 6:37 a.m., he had taken a screenshot of a website providing him with clear guidance that he should seek emergency medical help if a child displays symptoms such as excessive bruising or swelling and or a loss of consciousness. At 6:40 a.m., Kyle rang his mother, but she didn't answer. He claims that he called her because she's a nurse, but Kyle's mother is in fact a non-medically trained healthcare support worker. He continued to try to contact his mother and even sent her pictures of Lola. When she finally received them, she urged Kyle to take the little girl to the hospital immediately. Kyle had also sent a disturbing video to his mother. It showed him picking up Lola's limp body and trying to get her to stand on her feet before letting her go, and she fell to the ground. He then says to the camera, "She's gone. She's gone." His mother never watched the video and still never has. Kyle would later show some of these photos to different people and act like he was proud of it. In the morning that Lola had gone to the hospital, when police came around 11 a.m., at first, Kyle tried to not even let them inside the house. And when they finally did get inside, he was in the middle of vacuuming, like he was trying to get rid of as much forensic evidence as possible. The prosecution said that the spotless bathroom, along with the bloodied pajamas that they found, were clear proof that Kyle was trying to cover his tracks. Lola's duvet was also found to have a big brown stain on it and a crusty yellow stain believed to be vomit, as well as urine. Sinead had initially said that Kyle had never acted violent towards her or her children, apart from one occasion where he bruised her arm after grabbing it while attempting to take her phone during an argument. But this story soon changed while in court, and Sinead spoke about how Kyle had chipped her tooth, along with all the times that he had violently lashed out at her, physically and verbally. Sinead had actually been warned just 8 days prior to Lola's attack about how dangerous Kyle could be. Kyle's ex-partner's mother had actually messaged Sinead on Facebook and told her that Kyle was a risk to children, and she said that she was in fear for Sinead's children being around him. Sinead's defender said that she was in fear of Kyle's reaction if she had gone to the police, since she had been a victim of DV a few times before. When Sinead was asked what steps she had taken to protect her daughter, she said that she never thought that she was in any real danger. She maintained that her daughter had been safe with her. Clearly. There were many other witnesses who gave testimony about Kyle's volatile and violent behavior in the past. Even throughout all this, Kyle remained expressionless and emotionless. Lola's mother, Sinead, was tearful throughout, however. The judge said that he was sure that Kyle was responsible for multiple assaults on Lola before her tragic murder. He also stated, Lola should have been safe in her own home and surrounded by people that she could trust. But instead, her mother, Sinead James, allowed a violent and destructive man into their lives and failed in her duty to protect Lola from harm. Sinead was well aware that Kyle was a danger, but she willingly chose to keep him in her life. On April 4th, 2023, after 10 hours of deliberating, the jury returned with their verdict, and they found Kyle Bevan to be guilty of murder and Sinead James to be guilty of causing or allowing Lola's death. Both Lola's grandmother as well as her biological father gave heartbreaking victim impact statements before sentencing. Lola's grandmother commanded Kyle look at her before she started reading hers. She said, Kyle, you took the young innocent life of my granddaughter. At the same time, you have taken so much more than you can imagine. You killed my Lola, and you have broken her family. I hope the time you have now you can understand what you have done. As a parent, all I could hope for was that Lola would continue to grow with happiness and health and with the courage in her heart to know she could be anything and do anything she wanted. But that will never be. Lola didn't just die, wasn't just taken from me in the worst possible way. She was brutally attacked. Her tiny body was savaged in the evilest way. She didn't stand a chance. Lola's little life was filled with filth and chaos at the hands of her mother, who couldn't even provide her with basic safety in her own home. The guilt I feel lives inside me and will never leave, as the memory of Lola lying in a hospital bed, fighting to stay alive, will remain with me always. All I have been left with is guilt, heartache, pain, and torment. Lola's grandmother had been due to babysit the night of the violent attack, but she had felt unwell. For this reason, she partially blames herself for what happened to little Lola.
Stand up, Carl Bevan. For the murder of Lola James, I sentence you to imprisonment for life with a minimum term of 28 years, less 368 days already spent in custody on remand. You may go down. Stand up, Sinead James. For allowing the death of Lola James, I sentence you to 6 years imprisonment. You will serve half, namely 3 years, before release on licence. You may go down.
Lola James's funeral was held on September 15th, 2020 in St. David and St. Patrick's Church in Haverfordwest. Lola then traveled through Milford Haven in a horse and carriage to Thornton Cemetery. Her family asked people to clap, cheer, or let off a balloon to help celebrate the little girl's life. Jeremiah Oliver was born on December 8th, 2008 in New Britain, Connecticut, to Jose and Elsa Oliver. Jeremiah lived with his other 2 siblings. He was a sweet and caring boy. He loved to play toy cars, and he loved playing outside. He wanted to be a police officer when he grew up, and Jeremiah was also obsessed with anything Spider-Man. Jose and Elsa Oliver split up after Jeremiah was born. Elsa had primary custody of the 3 children, and it's said that Jose did go visit his children. That's up until 2011, when Elsa obtained a restraining order and would not respond to his request to see his children. So on September 8th, 2011, the family was living in Connecticut at the time. DCF received a report with allegations of neglect of the 3 children, who were 7, 5, and 2.5 at the time. The social worker who was put on the case met with the family regularly after that. She also made referrals for services for the family. The social worker accompanied Elsa to the children's school, assisted her in making appointments for the children, helped her get the children's clothing, as well as get some new furniture for her apartment. But then in March of 2012, the social worker had to follow up on a subsequent report of neglect in the household. On January 15, 2013, the family moved to Clarendon Street in Fitchburg, Massachusetts, and their case was transferred to the North Central area office, and a new social worker was assigned to the case as well. The social worker said that she read the transfer summary, but she didn't read anything else in the family's case file. The social worker supervisor said the same. The social worker was supposed to visit the home in January of 2013. However, she never made it out there. She did conduct 2 home visits in February of 2013. There was no home visit the following month. And then in April, during the home visit, the social worker didn't speak to the children at all. She just observed them and said that they looked clean and happy. It was during this visit that Elsa mentioned to the social worker that she might be having the kids go down to Florida to stay with her mother for the summer. Another report of suspected neglect as well as physical abuse came over to DCF in May of 2013. One of the Oliver children had reported to school staff at the Rheingold Elementary School in Fitchburg that before he had gone to school, his mother had struck him with a belt on the back, legs, and feet. A few days later, a DCF investigator met with Jeremiah as well as his mother at their apartment. Elsa told the social worker that her children were receiving services outside of the ones that DCF offered. So that's why she wasn't using the services they had offered her, counseling and such. She also mentioned that she was trying to get a new apartment. This was May 20th, 2013. That was the last time a child protection worker saw Jeremiah Oliver. It was also in that same month, May of 2013, that Elsa got herself a new boyfriend by the name of Alberto Sierra. Alberto was 22 at the time, and he already had a history of domestic abuse. He had hit a woman as well as her son, and then threatened to burn down their house. He was a real catch. In August of 2013, Elsa and her children moved to a new apartment at 276 Kimball Street. Her new boyfriend, Alberto, would move in about a month later, and he would become the family's main disciplinarian. Then, on December 13th, 2013, the Massachusetts State Police, as well as the Fitchburg Police, went to the Olivers' apartment with a search warrant. Officials at Rheingold Elementary School had contacted them. They said that Jeremiah's 8-year-old sister, Juliana, had told her teacher that her and her other sibling were being abused at home. She also said at that time that she had not seen Jeremiah in a long time. The police searched the apartment as well as did interviews with the family.
Hey guys, behind me here is the apartment where Jeremiah's family resided. They moved here from Clarendon Street in August of 2013. This was the last known place that Jeremiah lived before he went missing.
At that time, Elsa told police that Jeremiah was actually living in Florida with some relatives. But when police contacted these said relatives, they said that Jeremiah was not down there. And they said that the last time they had actually seen Jeremiah was September 14th, 3 months prior to his sister notifying her teacher. A judge ordered Elsa to produce Jeremiah in front of him within the next 3 days. However, after the 3 days on December 16th, Elsa had failed to produce Jeremiah. She was then placed under arrest and charged with 2 counts of reckless endangerment of a child and 2 counts of being an accessory after a felony. Alberto was arrested and charged with 2 counts of assault and battery with a dangerous weapon, which was a knife, and 2 counts of assault and battery on a child, which resulted in bodily harm. Alberto is said to have charged and attacked Jeremiah and one of his siblings with a knife. Jeremiah's other 2 siblings that were in Elsa's custody were at this point taken into Child Protective Services custody. The police were now treating this as a homicide. A search started for Jeremiah. The community came together, and more than anything, they wanted to find Jeremiah alive. They searched everywhere. They waded through the Nashua River. They went knee-deep in snow. They looked far and wide for Jeremiah and came up with nothing for months on end. While the search went on, neighbors of Jeremiah's family at the Kimball Street apartment recounted how they frequently saw Jeremiah getting on and off of the school bus. They said he always seemed happy. However, his mother Elsa did not. It seemed like Elsa was always sad, and she thought that it was very weird that she had put black trash bags over all her windows. I'd be sad too if I was such a shitty person like her. As the search continued, there was still nothing found. That's until the beginning of the following year, in April of 2014. There was a tip received from an inmate at the Worcester County Jail telling officers about the location of Jeremiah's body. So on that same day, April 18th, police pulled over to the side of Highway 190 in Sterling, Massachusetts. About 40 feet back from the busy highway, there was a suitcase discovered. It wasn't visible to the thousands of passerbys every day. It was partially hidden in the tall grass off to the side of the highway. When police opened up the suitcase, little Jeremiah's body was found, all wrapped up in a blanket. In that exact spot that Jeremiah's body was found, now stands a blue cross in memory of him.
This is where Jeremiah's body was discovered in a suitcase on April 18th of 2014. And as you can see, they have a blue cross here now in memory of him. We're about 40 feet off of Route 190. It's a very busy highway in Sterling that leads down to Worcester. This is a pretty tough spot to access, so I'm sure that no one's been out here to maintain it or bring flowers in a while because of the difficulty of it. Now that the case has been reopened, though, I expect that they're probably gonna come out here and paint it and put flowers, hopefully. Yeah, it looks like there was a little flag there even that might have fallen off. Or something, huh? That's a little flag post.
The night after Jeremiah's body was found, the community held a candlelit vigil in front of the family's apartment on Kimball Street. Hundreds came and left flowers, balloons, and stuffed animals for him. The community was devastated that Jeremiah was not found alive. The little boy's funeral was held on May 3rd, 2014, at the Rollstone Congregational Church in downtown Fitchburg. Between 300 and 400 mourners came to say goodbye to Jeremiah.
I'm at the Rollstone Congregational Church in downtown Fitchburg. This is where Jeremiah's funeral services were held. They were held on May 3rd, 2014, just a few weeks after he was found on the side of Route 190.
Jeremiah's biological father, Jose Oliver, gave a tearful speech in front of the church. He asked his son for forgiveness for not being there for him, and he also praised his daughter, Juliana, for being Jeremiah's hero. Members of Jeremiah's family wore royal blue sweatshirts and t-shirts with hashtag Team Jeremiah on them. From there, Jeremiah was taken to the Hope Memorial Cemetery in Worcester, Massachusetts, which is about 20 minutes from the church that his services were held at. There was even a fourth grader from one of the Fitchburg elementary schools that didn't know Jeremiah, but was so saddened by his story that she wanted to help out in any way that she could. The little girl wrote a song and paired it with music that was performed by her older cousin. They then put this song on CD and sold it via word of mouth and Facebook to raise money. They raised $867 from this to be donated to the funeral home for Jeremiah's services. Any money that was raised from it after Jeremiah's funeral went towards his siblings' trust fund, as well as the granite bench memorial that they put in at Coggeshall Park in Fitchburg. So this is Coggeshall Park, located off of Electric Ave in Fitchburg. And this is a popular local spot where kids come to play on the playground, feed the ducks. There's lots of walking trails. So after Jeremiah's body was found, the community got together and raised enough money to have a bench built in memory of Jeremiah Oliver. There was a dedication ceremony done on the day that the new bench was revealed. It was placed inside the children's playground here at Coggeshall Park, where it remains to this day. Jose Oliver had actually petitioned for the custody of his other two children about a month after Elsa had failed to produce Jeremiah in court. He said, "Don't judge me by my past. I can be a father to my children." He was then arrested just a few days later on charges of trying to sell heroin. The two children went to foster care. Elsa and Alberto were indicted in 2014 on charges of kidnapping, and battery with a dangerous weapon, and reckless endangerment. They both pleaded not guilty. The Fitchburg police started questioning local tattoo artists as they had seen that Elsa had recently gotten a new butterfly tattoo with the date of September 25th, 2013 on it, which was very close to the last day that Jeremiah's extended family said they had seen him. So they were curious if she had told any local tattoo artist what the significance of that date was. However, after asking multiple tattoo shops in the area, police were not able to come up with anything. It was not until February of 2016, almost 2 years later, that Jeremiah's death was finally ruled a homicide. The Office of the Chief Medical Examiner determined that Jeremiah's cause of death was homicidal violence, but he was unable to determine exactly what that entailed. Elsa Oliver pleaded guilty to charges of child battery and reckless endangerment of a child. In August of 2017, she was sentenced to 7.5 years in prison. Prior to her sentencing, Alberto was handed down a sentence as well. He was to serve 6 to 7 years for assaulting Elsa as well as Jeremiah's siblings. He had also faced charges of kidnapping and assault of Jeremiah. However, the prosecutors dropped these charges, but for a good reason. It was so that double jeopardy would not prevent any further prosecution for a murder charge. Elsa's friend, Kaylee Tybalt, was also sentenced in December of 2018 for lying to police during an investigation. Phone records showed that she had committed perjury in front of a grand jury. She was given 1 year of probation. Christian Sierra, Alberto's brother, also pleaded guilty to the same charges a few months later. He was sentenced to 2.5 years in jail, but only served 135 days. The charges of both of them reportedly center around attempts to hide communication between Elsa and Alberto months after Jeremiah was last seen. The Child Welfare League of America investigated DCF in regards to Jeremiah's disappearance and subsequent death. They said while there is significant evidence that some DCF staff did not do their job, there is not evidence that DCF's actions and failures caused Jeremiah's death. Several of the DCF workers that were assigned to Jeremiah's case were fired. After it was revealed, there was many missed visits and appointments. The social worker assigned to his case had actually missed 8 monthly mandatory visits to the family. In Massachusetts, with an open case, they have to do a house visit once a month. And they missed them, as I said, 8 different times. Usually it's the family. This time, it was the DCF worker that missed them. This supposedly led to operational changes at DCF, as well as the firing of his social worker, 2 supervisors, and the resignation of the DCF commissioner at the time. There were, however, no criminal charges brought up against any DCF worker. What else is new? There were 3 other child deaths in central Massachusetts in the 3 years prior to Jeremiah's disappearance, who were either receiving services or in DCF's custody at the time. There were also 2 other children that were seriously injured. Both Alberto Sierra and Elsa Oliver were released from prison in 2020. They had both received credit for their prison time due to their guilty pleas. Alberto was a free man for almost 3 years before they finally arrested him on May 18th of this year, 2023. At the time of his arrest, Alberto was living with his father. His father said that he was in a new relationship that was very healthy and had none of the toxic traits tied to his last relationships. Okay. Which doesn't explain why he also currently had 4 restraining orders out against him as of May 18th. Alberto was indicted by a grand jury on 1 charge of murder and another charge of disinterring a body, which is digging it up. Alberto, of course, pled not guilty to both charges. Alberto Sierra's defense attorney asked that his bail set to be no more than $20,000. She said that he had rheumatoid arthritis and was part of a clinical trial, so she said he was not going to be able to get access to his medications. The judge said that while she understood the seriousness of his medical condition, she also knew that he would absolutely be able to receive his medication at a correctional facility. Therefore, she said, no bail. That same day, more of Jeremiah's story was finally revealed. When he died, 5-year-old Jeremiah was just trying to protect his mother. His mother that was so awful to him, that hurt him. He died trying to protect her. Elsa had just been headbutted by Alberto. She was bleeding and went to the bathroom to clean herself up. During that time, Jeremiah ran out of the kitchen closet, the closet that he had been living and sleeping in, thanks to Alberto. He yelled, "Don't touch my mommy," before Alberto grabbed him by the head and slammed little Jeremiah's body down onto the hard tiled kitchen floor. After that, he was no longer moving. Alberto took his body and put him back into the kitchen closet. The next day, when Elsa and Alberto looked into the closet, Jeremiah was still not moving or breathing at this point. They placed his body in a suitcase and buried him. They would then move his body around. Every single time that Alberto would get nervous that the police were going to find him or somebody that was out searching for him was going to find the body, he would dig it up and move it again. Witnesses also told investigators that they had heard Alberto say things such as that he had smacked Jeremiah around. And the reason why he had such a bad relationship with Jeremiah is because Jeremiah would hurt things around the house. So things are more important to Alberto than human life. Yeah. There is no information yet as to how the suitcase with Jeremiah's body in it made its way to Route 190 in Sterling. But this case is definitely one I will be keeping an eye on as more updates come in, especially since it's so local. I honestly cannot believe that I missed the updates until now, 2 months later. I didn't even realize that they had arrested him. I don't read the paper enough, I guess. So finally, after 10 years, little Jeremiah is finally going to be getting some justice. His monster is no longer out on the streets walking free. He's finally paying for what he did, and once his trial comes around, hopefully he's sentenced to life. Sorry guys, no death penalty here in Massachusetts.
Excuses seemed like exactly that, excuses last weekend when Sophia was rushed to the hospital unconscious.
The story that I was getting was that she was choking on her food, on peanut butter and jelly when she was asleep.
But doctors said Sophia was bleeding in her brain and had other injuries. Exeter police now treating her death as a murder.
Sophia Acosta was born on February 5, 2008 to Erica Smith and Obadiah Acosta. She also had a younger sister named Alexa. Sophia showed love to everyone she came in contact with. She was known to be happy, lovable, and silly. Some of Sophia's favorite things included princesses, coloring, and dressing up. At some point, Sophia's parents would go their separate ways. However, Sophia's mother, Erica, was granted full custody of her along with her little sister. In September of 2010, Erica would let a man by the name of Christopher Cheery move in with the three of them to their apartment that was located in Exeter, California. Erica would say that the reason she had let Christopher move in with them in the first place was because she was trying to help him kick his heroin habit. The two would begin dating a few months later, and regardless of the reason why Erica said she originally let Christopher stay, they soon started using heroin together. And this is about the time that the abuse of Sophia started. Erica would also later claim that Christopher had forced her to use heroin. I doubt that. On May 7, 2011, Christopher had given Sophia a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. When she was done, he brought her and her little sister Alexa upstairs for a nap. After laying the girls down, Christopher then returned back downstairs. But less than 2 hours later, Christopher discovered Sophia unresponsive in her room. He yelled down to Erica, who came running up. 911 was then called, and Erica and Christopher then began performing CPR on Sophia. When the first responders arrived at apartment number 9 at the Exeter Apartments, Sophia was lying naked, wet, and in the middle of the living room floor on a towel. Christopher was standing only a few feet away from her, while Erica was just outside the apartment, crying. So while Erica visibly appeared upset, Christopher appeared rather nervous and fearful, police would say. One of the police officers who had been first to respond to the scene found that Sophia still had a faint pulse, and she was immediately taken to the hospital. She would later be life-flighted to Children's Hospital Central California, and her little sister Alexa was taken away by Child Protective Services. When the toddler arrived at the hospital, she was completely unresponsive and would have to be kept alive on a ventilator. She had bruising on her buttocks, and she had bleeding coming from her mouth as well as her private areas. So in addition to the likely sexual abuse, Sophia also had some traumatic head injuries. Her brain was bleeding and it showed a lack of oxygen and blood flow. This was consistent with shaking plus impact. Little Sophia was brain dead. On May 11th, after Sophia had been in the hospital for 4 days, as her father Obi sat by her side, she would be taken off of life support and then pronounced dead. Now, Sophia's father Obi had been told by Erica that Sophia choked on a peanut butter and jelly sandwich when she was first brought to the hospital. He didn't find out anything else until later on. The doctors at Children's Hospital reported to the Exeter Police Department the extent of Sophia's injuries, including that she had internal brain hemorrhaging, and they believed that her death was non-accidental. The doctor who treated Sophia said it was one of the worst cases he's ever seen in his career, and he believed it looked like she had been tortured. This doctor had also focused on child protection and child abuse for more than 25 years. He also believed that Sophia was sexually assaulted and likely struck in the abdomen hard twice. She was also subjected to severe impact by her head by some kind of object. An autopsy later revealed that Sophia had died from blunt force trauma, and, as doctors had suspected, she had been sexually assaulted. Sophia had bruises on her scalp as well as underneath her scalp and on her abdomen. She also tested positive for marijuana. Around 9 p.m. on the night that Sophia had been rushed to the hospital, police would search the apartment where she had lived. They said the entire place was a mess. There was also some blood spatter found in the children's bedroom, and Sophia's comforter was covered in vomit and feces. Downstairs, investigators discovered a pillow and blanket pile, and some of the items in this appeared to have dried bloodstains on them. Erica would tell officers that it was odd that these pillows and blankets had been stacked because Christopher normally didn't clean up anything. She also said that a few of these blankets and pillows had actually belonged in the master bedroom, and she was unsure why they were down in the living room. During their search, police would also find drug paraphernalia as well as heroin residue, though not enough of it to charge Christopher with any drug-related crime. Christopher and Erica had been brought down to the police station and questioned on the night of May 7th. When police spoke with Erica, she said that after lunch that day, Christopher had brought Sophia and her sister Alexa upstairs for a nap. Christopher would then go back downstairs. However, he would go upstairs 2 other times because he said he heard noises. The second time he went up, he called for Erica, saying that something was wrong with Sophia. She ran upstairs and she saw Sophia lying on the floor with just one eye open. They had put Sophia in the bathtub with cold water in an attempt to revive her. Erica also called 911 at this point, and the pair attempted to perform CPR on Sophia. When a detective asked Erica about the bruising that was found near Sophia's buttocks, Erica told him that it was when she had tripped down some stairs earlier in the day and fallen on some play blocks. She hadn't been home. It was Christopher who was watching her at the time. Erica had actually gone to Save Mart around 8:30 in the morning to get some quarters, she told police. When it was his turn to be questioned, Christopher would tell police that he and Erica were down in the living room when suddenly they heard a thump from upstairs. After they both ran up to Sophia's room, Christopher said that they found her laying on the floor in her panties and a t-shirt, wrapped up in her blanket, covered in vomit. He said she was not breathing and also appeared bloated, so he had pushed on her stomach a few times and some vomit had come out. Christopher told police officers that he had then picked up Sophia and put her in a bathtub of cold water, trying to revive her. After that, he put her clothes back on her, wrapped her up in a towel, and brought her downstairs to where she was laying in the living room. He couldn't really provide a good explanation as to where the bruising on Sophia's body had come from, other than maybe she fell out of bed and landed on some of the toys that were lying around.
Well, Ken, we met Chris Cheery at a park in Tulare County. He fears for his safety and doesn't want anyone to know where he's staying. He wanted to tell his side of the story. What happened the day Sophia Acosta was found critically injured.
We were just downstairs smoking heroin, we had smoked some pot, and that's about it. Like, that's all we were really doing. Like, and the girls were upstairs in the bedroom sleeping. I had found her on the ground next to the bed, and she had vomit, and she was knocked out with her eyes, like she was unconscious, but with her eyes open.
Chris says he washed Sophia off in the tub while the child's mother ran for help. Chris says there was a miniature metal shopping cart next to Sophia's bed. He believes Sophia hit her head on the cart.
That was exactly right at the head of her bed on the floor where her head was. And she was still wrapped in the blanket and everything, so it seemed like she had rolled off or had either, like, you know what I mean, like fell somehow.
Did you kill Sophia?
No.
Did you beat her?
I've never laid hands on Sophia to harm her.
Did you molest Sophia?
No, I would never, ever touch Sophia. I loved her more than anything.
And to those who believe he killed Sophia?
I would honestly give my life for that little girl to be alive. Like, I would gladly switch Sophia positions, like, in a heartbeat.
Just shy of a month later, on June 2nd, a warrant for Christopher's arrest was issued, and a day later, he was arrested in Turlock. Christopher was charged with 1 count of murder with special circumstances of torture, sodomy, and lewd and lascivious acts. He was also charged with assault of a child causing death, sodomy, and forcible lewd acts on a child. The murder charge made him eligible for the death penalty. Little Sophia's babysitter said that she had noticed signs of abuse on Sophia months prior to her death. The sitter said that she had seen Christopher spank Sophia really hard, and when she had gone to Erica to say something about it, Erica just didn't listen. Another sitter had seen her with black eyes, and Sophia had told her that her butt hurt on a number of occasions. In addition, she would always be scared and tell the babysitter, "Don't tell my daddy." Sophia referred to Christopher as her daddy at that point. This sitter had also spoken to Erica about the things that she had noticed, but she also was ignored by Erica. Because if you ignore it, then it's just not going to happen anymore. Right? Christopher and Erica on a number of occasions tried to blame this babysitter for some of the injuries that little Alexa had, including when she had broken her leg and when there was blood in her diaper one time. Christopher Cherry's trial would not take place for over 5 years after Sophia's murder, on September 26, 2016. The district attorney began with a photograph of Sophia, describing her as lively and always happy. They then spoke about how Sophia had suffered blunt force trauma, causing her to bleed excessively in several parts of her body, as they showed jurors graphic photos of the child's bruises. The prosecution's argument was that Christopher had sexually assaulted and then beaten Sophia. The defense, on the other hand, was saying that while it's a tragedy when any child dies, in this case, there was no rape, no murder, and no torture. They called Sophia's case a medical mystery because there was no ligature marks where someone would have held her down, bite marks to fight back, or any evidence of torture. Christopher's defense team argued that if she had been raped, there would have been more blood found in the apartment, and her injuries would have been more severe. They claimed that some of the blood that police had later found was due to a rare blood clotting disease that Sophia had. They are really stretching on that one. They also made the claims that constipation, as well as the paramedics' resuscitation efforts, had something to do with a few of her injuries. Now, the reason the defense was saying that Sophia could have been injured due to the paramedics' resuscitation efforts was because when she was in the ambulance, a paramedic had tried to intubate the toddler, but after 2 failed attempts, doctors would take over. The doctors, however, would also have a difficult time intubating Sophia as she had a blockage in her lungs. But the prosecution claimed that this would not have caused the injuries that Sophia had suffered. In response to the defense's blood argument, the prosecution presented evidence that there was blood found on Sophia's mattress, and they said that Christopher could have washed off any other evidence while in the shower. The detective who had searched the apartment the night of Sophia's murder had not found any fresh blood. He did say, however, that there was the possibility that a small amount of blood had dried by the time that he had gotten there. A Tulare County firefighter and part-time EMT testified that he remembered seeing the little girl's body lying on the floor while paramedics tried to find a pulse. He had actually been the first one in the ambulance to notice a small puddle of blood underneath Sophia. Medical experts had then found lacerations as well as bleeding around Sophia's rectum. The firefighter who testified said he never forgot the scene. His daughter was around the same age at the time. He said out of his 16 years as a firefighter, he usually doesn't take things home, but this one had really stuck with him. More than 10 medical experts testified that Sophia's death was caused by extreme force. One of them saying, "There's no way on God's green earth that these injuries could have been caused by a blood clotting disorder." Thank you. Dr. Philip Hayden, who had examined Sophia the day that she had been brought into the hospital in May of 2011, described in graphic detail the extent of Sophia's injuries. Sophia had several bruises noted on her scalp. She had several external signs of trauma on her back and buttocks, abdominal injuries, and a contusion to her diaphragm. While the doctor agreed that Christopher had sexually assaulted Sophia and then beaten her to the point of unconsciousness, he said that on the night she was brought to the hospital, her mother, Erica, told a different story. She had told him that Sophia had fallen downstairs 2 days prior, and then that day, she had fallen into a metal toy shopping cart. Neither of these would have anything to do with those injuries, the doctor testified. Christopher's DNA was also found on a bed skirt in Sophia's room, but the defense said this was not unusual, as that had once been Christopher's room. The defense also brought up the fact that none of Christopher's DNA had been found on Sophia's body, and none of hers had been found on his body. However, washing would have been able to get rid of this very important DNA evidence, and Sophia had been soaking wet when first responders had gotten there. Erica then took the stand during Christopher's trial. She said that her ex-boyfriend Christopher was a typical addict who was teeming with anger, violence, and abuse when he needed a fix. She said that he had previously choked her out, pushed her up against a wall, threw picture frames at her, and made death threats when she had asked him to leave a few times. The first thing that Erica remembered about May 7th, 2011 was that Christopher and her had gotten into an argument, though she said she didn't remember what it was about or if it had gotten physical. Though I feel like if it had gotten physical, that's something you'd remember. So my guess is she's hiding something there. Erica said this argument only ended when she left the apartment to go get some heroin, because when Christopher was coming down, he was a much different person, and she figured that the drugs would make things better. In order to obtain these drugs, Erica took 2 buses to Visalia. There, she purchased $20 to $30 worth of heroin. When she returned back home to her apartment in Exeter after that, Erica said she went upstairs to check on her 2 girls who were sleeping in a twin bed in their room. She said that she could not remember if Christopher ever went upstairs to check on the girls, but she remembered watching a movie with him. Erica would then testify that she heard a thud come from the girls' room upstairs, but she thought that Sophia had just fallen off of her bed. When she went to investigate, Erica had found Sophia lying on the floor naked, though later she would say that she had panties on. Right away, Erica noticed that her daughter was covered in vomit, and she said she went to call 911. After the phone call, she went back upstairs and found Christopher washing Sophia off in the bathtub. Erica then wrapped her daughter up in a towel and brought her downstairs into the living room. From there, she went over to a neighbor's house to ask her for a ride to the hospital. Erica would admit that she had lied to police about certain things during her first interview because she was afraid of having her children taken away or going to jail for drug use. She was then asked if she had trusted Christopher with her children. She said that she did trust him. She had seen nothing to prove otherwise. During her testimony, the district attorney asked Erica about the time that Sophia's younger sister had broken her leg. This was in March 2011 when she was just an infant. Erica said that Christopher had told her at the time that they had been at the playground and the baby had twisted her leg while on the slide. But the doctors at the hospital who examined baby Alexa said that the injury had likely been caused by a fall. When Erica confronted Christopher about this, he then changed his story and said that she had actually been dropped at a birthday party. I don't know why Erica would even believe that at that point. Also testifying was the maintenance man at the apartment complex Sophia had lived in. He had gone into the apartment after police had left to further clean things up. He had found a condom wrapper as well as what he believed to be a sexual device in the children's bedroom. A neighbor at the apartment complex spoke about the changes that she had seen around the time that Christopher had moved in with Erica and the girls. She suspected drug use was going on in the apartment. There was also many complaints from her neighbors about the couple, and she stopped seeing Sophia, Alexa, and their mother altogether. A woman named Karen Bibby testified about a conversation she had previously had with Erica. Erica had told her that Christopher was hitting her, and that one day he had actually pushed her up against a wall while holding her by the throat. When Karen asked her why he had done this, Erica said it was because the kids were not calling him daddy. Because they have a dad, and because you're a dick? I don't know. During closing statements, Christopher's defense team asked the jury to stick to the facts and not speculate on what they thought had happened. But the prosecution said that the facts clearly showed that Christopher had murdered Sophia Acosta. After weeks of listening to testimony, on November 14th, a jury found Christopher guilty. After the conviction, the jury was given testimonial to determine what their recommendation to the judge would be in regards to the death penalty. Christopher's defense's argument was that he should not get the death penalty because he had never been given the chance at a normal life. The slow and steady decline of his parents' relationship, as well as his father's drug use when he was an adolescent, was devastating to him. Yeah, but a lot of people have problems like that, and they don't go around murdering children, so... By the age of 15, Christopher was already addicted to heroin, and he was left to live alone with his brother in an apartment. Yet, during his 2,000 days of incarceration over the last 5.5 years, the defense said that Christopher behaved well because it was the first time in his life that he had a supervised and structured environment. The prosecution argued with that statement, saying that Christopher was indeed not a model citizen while in jail. Far from. He had actually thrown feces at another inmate, been caught with a 2-inch needle in his cell, and had 300 days added to his sentence for his inability to follow rules. The most damning piece of evidence was presented during the sentencing. It was a jail call from Christopher's father, Charles Cherry. Charles told his son to not smile in court even if the jury wasn't there, because Sophia's family was still there. Christopher's response was fuck 'em. He has no sympathy and no respect for Sophia's family whatsoever. The jury made its decision and recommended the death sentence for Christopher Cherry, and the judge agreed. He is now being held on death row at San Quentin Prison in California. A woman by the name of Jacqueline Perez, who used to be Erica's friend, was in the courtroom during the trial. She said she was no longer friends with Erica, and she felt that she needed to be held responsible for Sophia's death as well. And I agree. Christopher's father, who was also in the courtroom, said afterwards, "They won this part of the battle, but the war isn't over. I know my son is innocent, and we're going to keep fighting until he gets a fair trial." Okay, good luck. Not. After a custody battle with Erica, Sophia Acosta was finally granted full custody of his daughter Alexa. Due to how Sophia had died, Obi had to undergo anger management classes and domestic violence classes in order to be eligible to gain custody of his daughter again. On May 14, 2011, more than 60 people gathered in song and prayer at Memorial Park in Livingston, California for a candlelight vigil. Many wore t-shirts with Sophia's picture on them. Her father, Sophia Acosta, said about his little girl, "Sophia was a happy kid. She always brought smiles to people's faces. Everyone was happy around her." He then spoke about how when he was at the hospital with Sophia, all he wanted to do was pick her up and hold her. But he couldn't. They allowed him to hold her hand, and that was about it. There was also a memorial set up with flowers and candles at Triangle Park for Sophia. On May 24, 2011, dozens of mourners gathered at Ivers and Alcorn Funeral Home to say goodbye to Sophia Acosta. During the ceremony, songs were sung and family members released white doves. Sophia was then buried at the Winton Cemetery.
Looking for any sign of schoolgirl Charisse Mutton, who was last seen on Thursday, but her mother and stepfather only reported her missing on Friday morning. It's believed the 9-year-old came here to the Blue Mountains on a holiday from Queensland and was staying at her mother's fiance's family estate, which is also a popular wedding venue. Neighbours have told investigators they saw a car leave the residence early Friday morning without its lights on.
Charisse Mutton, also lovingly called Charzy, was born on August 11, 2012, to her mother, Callista Mutton, and her father, Scott Hensby. Charisse was said to be smart, sweet, bubbly, and well-behaved. She also loved animals and wanted to be a veterinarian when she grew up. Charisse had lived with her grandparents at Tweedshead on the New South Wales-Queensland border since she was 4 years old. This was due to Charlisse's mother, Callista, proving herself unable to properly care for the little girl. Apparently, Callista struggled with both drug and mental health issues. Her drug of choice was methamphetamine. While Callista was serving time in jail through a prison program, she would meet 31-year-old Justin Stein. He was also incarcerated at the time for 5 years due to a failed cocaine import attempt. Justin also struggled with heroin addiction. And Callista was in jail due to a driving incident in which her passenger had died. She was there for 3 years. So Callista and Justin had continued their relationship once they were both released in 2020. So Charisse did not see her mother much, but on December 21st, 2021, she would fly to Sydney to see her mother and her mother's now fiancé, Justin Stein. Little Charisse was excited for the trip, and she even referred to Justin as Daddy already. Additionally, Charisse had asked her grandfather before she left if he thought that Justin would make a good father. During Charlisse's visit, the trio would spend much of their time at Wildstein Private Gardens at Mount Wilson, where Justin's family owned a home. They also spent part of this holiday staying in a caravan at Riviera Ski Park, which is about 90 minutes away from Justin's family's house. Judging by the happy and silly pictures that Charisse and her mother had taken together, she looked to be having a great time. But then, on January 14th, 2022, just days before Charisse was scheduled to go back home to see her grandparents, she would be reported as missing. Now, 3 days prior to this, on January 11th, Charisse had traveled with Justin to his family's home, while her mother remained behind at Riviera Ski Gardens in the caravan. Though it's not known exactly what time they headed out, the last text message that Charisse had sent to her grandmother was at 6:20 p.m., and Charlisse's cell phone at the time had pinged near the caravan. About an hour after Charisse and Justin had left, Callista would text him, making sure that they had got there okay. While Justin didn't answer for a while, he finally replied back at 8:20 p.m., telling her that they had made it, but he had just left his phone in the car. He said at the time he was just cooking up some dinner for Charisse while she was watching TV and playing with balloons. The next morning, Justin texted Callista again, but this time he told her that Charisse was not feeling well and she had thrown up all over the floor and bed. Apparently, the little girl had woken up in the middle of the night, ash white, and she had gone into Justin's room, where she had got in his bed and spent the rest of the night. The next morning, she had woken up, still sick and vomiting. Justin told Callista that since Charisse was still not feeling well, he was going to leave her in bed to rest. The text he sent her read, "I am literally about to walk out the door. Sharzy is staying in bed. She's wrecked and already fallen back to sleep." And Justin reassured Callista that Charisse would not be alone. There was an auctioneer who had actually stopped by to value some antiques for his family, and she had said that she didn't mind staying to watch Charisse while he went and picked up Callista. And for some reason, this was an acceptable answer to Callista, even though she had no idea who this person was. So Justin drove back by himself to pick up Callista, and when he did, the two of them took their time getting back to Charisse. They traveled first to Surrey Hills in order to buy some methamphetamine, and while they were there, they ended up having sex in the public toilet. Following this drug pickup trip, the couple traveled back to Justin's family's home, arriving at 8:44 p.m. When they arrived, they noticed that all the lights were off, and when they went inside, Charisse was nowhere to be seen. So Justin went around the home looking for her, while Callista called the local hospitals, trying to see if anyone had brought her daughter in. At this time, Callista also noticed that Charlisse's bag and hoodie were missing. While Justin was looking around the house for Charisse, he called up his mother, who owned the home, and he found out some shocking information. The auctioneer, whom he said he had left the little girl with, wasn't supposed to be there until the following week. He then said he began to panic and went outside to walk around the property and look and see if Charisse was out there, but she was not. The couple was somehow able to sleep that night, and Justin was awoken the next morning to the sound of his ute starting up. When he ran outside, Callista was driving off in his vehicle, and he attempted to chase her down. Callista hadn't taken off to look for her little girl, though. She had taken off because the night prior, she had looked through her fiancé Justin's phone and found out that not only was he using dating apps, but he was also talking to her friend, who she specifically asked him not to speak to. Additionally, the day prior, when the pair had had sex in the public toilets, When Justin had ejaculated, blood had come out of his penis. Callista had then Googled symptoms of gonorrhea and found out that that was one of them. Now she was under the impression that Justin was definitely cheating on her. So after she drove off in Justin's ute, Callista began sending him multiple text messages accusing him of being a cheater. "You're a liar, you're a cheat, and now I've lost my daughter. Going to neck myself, I'm so stupid," the message read. Callista then went to a local campground to get her emotions together. And she sent Justin another text, and this one said, "I'm grabbing my daughter and taking her to my brother's. I'm not losing her over you. I'm so stupid." Callista would also message a friend at this time, telling her that she had gone through Justin's phone and found out that he was cheating on her. Additionally, she told this friend that she didn't want to go to the police about her daughter being missing because she was afraid that if they found her, she would then lose her. Now, Justin was angry and he was desperate to get his ute back, so he began leaving Callista multiple voice messages. In these messages, he repeatedly called her names and told her that he was going to kill her. He then reported his ute as missing. Callista, however, would end up returning back to Justin's family's property 30 to 60 minutes later, and when she did, she tried to hide from him. Justin would find Callista, though, and when he did, he attacked her. He began kicking and hitting her all over. Callista would be left with bruising on her arms and scrapes all over her chest. Once he had calmed down a little, Justin told his fiancée that the auctioneer whom he had left Charisse with might not be who he thought she was. And the girl's disappearance could have been linked to ex-affiliations from his criminal past. Justin then said he was going to look for the little girl himself, and he was going to go to war for her. Then he drove off in his ute, which was now towing his boat. While out searching for Callista, Justin would speak with his mother again on the phone, and his mother would say that she believed Callista was responsible for her daughter's disappearance because things were just not adding up. She also said that Callista did not seem as upset as a mother should. Justin reassured his mother that he would get to the bottom of it. After hanging up with his mother, Justin called Callista and told her that he had hurt a man who was in a home where he thought that Charisse might be. He said he had stabbed this man. The next day was January 14th, and at 8:12 in the morning, Callista finally decided to report her daughter Charisse as missing, an entire 2 days after she was said to have disappeared.
Let's go ahead, Telstra.
61656, caller says she needs to report a missing child.
Yep. Go ahead, you've got the police.
Sorry, I need to report my daughter missing.
How old is she?
She's 9.
And when was the last time you saw your daughter?
2 nights ago.
2 nights.
Yeah.
So where did she go 2 nights ago?
She was here and she was being I wasn't here. My partner was here and he during the morning, she was really, she was sort of sick, so she was sort of lethargic, and I was 2.5 hours away, and Justin and the lady that came over to do the auctions for his mum, which was her friend, he asked if she could mind her while he went and got me, because he didn't want her in the car because she'd be throwing up, and she was fine with that. And the lady said, yeah, no worries, you take all the time you want. And when we got back, they were gone, and I thought maybe she's taken, so I rang the hospitals, but no, and apparently...
So yesterday morning was the last time someone saw her?
Yeah.
She only made the call after Justin arrived back at the caravan park and told her that it was not his associates that were involved and she needed to contact the police. And just hours after she was reported as missing, Justin was brought down to the Penrith police station for questioning. About an hour into this interview, Justin broke down and began to get emotional, saying that he felt responsible because he was the one that left the little girl with who he believed to be an auctioneer. And when detectives asked him if he thought that Charisse was no longer alive, he replied and said that he thought she would be okay. In my heart, I think she'll be okay because I know the kind of girl that she is. If something would have happened, she would have left a sign or something. So Justin was repeatedly denying that he had anything to do with Charisse's disappearance or possible murder, as police were insinuating. He claimed that Charisse meant the world to him, and he would have told them in a heartbeat if anything bad had happened to her. He additionally told the investigators that he did not believe that Callista cared about her child as much as she should, also telling them that she hadn't, quote, woken up after going to prison. Justin claimed that he was trying to build a new life, while Callista just sat around on her arse doing nothing. Since he wasn't under arrest at this time, Justin walked out of the building and asked for a cigarette, before he then admitted to detectives that he had not been entirely truthful, and he wanted a second interview. And during this second interview, he would lie even more. He told police that Charisse had not been at his mother's property with him, but the last time he had seen her was on January 10th. He said that he only found out she was missing on January 14th, and he was sure that her mother had something to do with her disappearance. So police would search through Justin's phone, but the story he was giving them was not matching up. Now, Callista was so upset about her daughter's disappearance that she actually had to be admitted to Blue Mountains Memorial Hospital. Here, she obtained mental health treatment, and the doctors also found out that Callista was 8 to 12 weeks pregnant with Justin's child. In the days after Charisse's disappearance, hundreds of police and emergency responders searched for her. Dogs, helicopters, volunteers, and locals spent 5 days combing the dense Blue Mountain woodland. Then, a few days after Charisse was reported as missing, police were able to obtain geographical coordinates from Justin's phone, which showed that he had driven and stopped by the Colo River. When police then went out to this location, they found tire marks on the side of the road, along with sand and scrape marks on the ground. Further down the embankment towards the river, they found an orange plastic barrel. It was lodged between two branches and looked as if it had been pushed from the side of the road. Inside the barrel was the body of little Charisse, and she was wrapped in plastic, then covered in sand. She had 2 gunshot wounds, one to her lower back and another to her cheek. A forensic toxicologist ended up determining that Charisse had consumed a toxic dosage of the medicine quetiapine, or generic Seroquel, 6 hours prior to her death. This drug would have caused a child to experience profound sedation. And guess who was prescribed this medicine? Justin Stein. He had been prescribed this to treat his schizophrenia, and the medication would be found at his mother's home in the mountains. While they had been searching for Charisse, police had been retracing Justin's other movements as well. Phone data and CCTV footage tracked Justin's movements for about 8 hours. On January 13th, before the data then shows that he returned back to the Blue Mountains. So as I had said, Charisse had spent the night of January 11th alone with Justin while her mother stayed back in the caravan park. It was believed that it was either on the evening of January 11th or the morning of January 12th that Justin killed Charisse. On the 13th, when he had left his mother's home to go search for Charisse, CCTV footage shows Justin's red Holden, Colorado ute towing his boat, and in the back of the ute was a barrel that was hidden underneath a blue tarp. He drove from there to Marsden Park Bunnings, where he purchased bags of sand. After that, he traveled to a nearby 7-Eleven, where he bought a can of Coke, a slushie, and a Snickers bar, before then filling up his boat with fuel at a nearby BP. Before he dumped Charisse's body, the location data showed that Justin had traveled to at least 3 separate boat ramps across Sydney, at Rose Bay, Germain, and Windsor. Justin had first gone to Rose Bay Wharf, where he had circled the parking lot a few times before then leaving for some reason. After that, he drove to Germain Wharf, but would decide that that one wasn't going to work either. From there, Justin had gone to the Windsor boat dock, and during this time, Callista had also texted him saying, "Please get our baby back." Once Justin got to the Windsor boat dock, he was unable to launch his boat. His plan was unraveling. It was believed that the combination of Charisse's weight, the sand, and the barrel was just too heavy for him to lift up into the boat. After trying for about 20 minutes, Justin then headed to the Colo River, where he would remain for around 50 minutes, disposing of Charlize's body. After pushing the barrel containing Charlize's body down the embankment, Justin had then returned back to his mother's home in the mountains at 2:45 a.m. Now, during police's investigation, they found that a plastic barrel was actually missing from Justin's mother's property, indicating a high probability that Charlize's murder had taken place there. Eventually, Justin would end up admitting to dumping Charlize's body, but he said that her mother was actually the one who had shot her, not him. And while he had been the one who placed the barrel in his ute, he had no idea that Charlize's body was in there, he claimed. Justin admitted that he had gone along with the plan to cover up Charlize's murder, but only after he had found that her body was inside the barrel. When he realized that Callista had put her daughter's remains inside, he panicked and disposed of them. Callista denied having any involvement in her daughter's death, and police were able to determine that she had not been up at the house in the mountains at the time that Charlize was believed to have been murdered. So, Justin was the one who was arrested and charged with Charlize's murder, then held without bail. While he was being held in prison, Justin had actually been asked by a correctional officer if he had killed Charlize. He told this guard that he had not, but he had been in the vicinity when she had been shot. Justin Stein also called his mother, Ann Mee Stein, 18 times while he was staying at the Silverwater Correctional Complex. In one of these phone calls, Justin was heard telling his mother that he needed her to retrieve something for him that he had buried up in the mountains. He told her that he had borrowed certain things from friends to take care of those drones, which he later dumped into a bush. But Justin's mother told him that police had already found what he had buried. Justin was unaware that weeks prior, a woman had stumbled upon a suspicious bundle of sticks while she was out looking for wildflowers. The woman had at first thought nothing of it, but when she later mentioned it to her son, who was working on the emergency response team looking for Charlize, he recommended that she report it to police. Detectives then visited the site, which was off of a fire trail in the Blue Mountains, and they dug up 2 rifles along with ammunition. One of these rifles had a scope attached to it, and police would end up determining that Justin had bought it just a few months earlier on eBay. And once this scope was brought in for processing, they found that Justin's fingerprints were all over it. So guns had actually been stolen from a neighboring property in Mount Wilson by both Justin and Callista back in November of 2021. One of these guns was used to kill Charlize. Both Callista and Justin would end up being charged for stealing these weapons. And Justin would also be charged with possession of child pornography.
More than 4 months since Charisse Mutton was murdered. The man accused of killing her was back in court facing new charges. Justin Stein hit with 2 counts of possessing illegal rifles similar to these. Police say they were stolen from properties neighbouring his family's Mount Wilson estate, also allegedly found with videos depicting child pornography. Homicide Squad detectives say the videos didn't involve Charlize, who was Stein's soon-to-be stepdaughter.
At his trial, which began in June of 2024, Justin Stein pled not guilty to the murder of Charisse Mutton. The prosecution, however, believed that Justin had given Charlize the antipsychotic medication, and when she had become extremely sick from it, he shot her once in the head and once in the back. So while there was no standout motive that was presented at Justin's trial, he was questioned on the stand about how he had been alone with the little girl, how he'd given her a medication that would make her drowsy, how she'd slept in his bed, and the fact that she'd been placed in the barrel with clothing but no underwear. But Justin's defense team was still trying to place the blame for Charlize's murder on her mother. Under questioning by his defense counsel, Justin sat in the witness box and wept as he gave his account of Charlize's final moments. Justin said that on the morning of January 12th, Charlize had been sick and vomiting, so he had given her 2 ibuprofen tablets. I've never heard of ibuprofen working for vomiting, but all right. There was also no trace of ibuprofen found in her system when the toxicology report came back. He then told the jury that he had put Charlize in the car even though she was sick before he went to collect her mother. Justin told the jury that the trio had then traveled to Surrey Hills, where he and Callista had bought drugs, but he denied having sex, claiming that Callista watched him walk his dog while her mother was in the toilets, shooting up, as he said. When they were back at the Mount Whistling home later that night, Justin claimed that he asked Charisse if she wanted anything for dinner. After that, he went out to work on a car in the shed. While doing this, he said he suddenly heard a shot ring out and Charisse scream, "Justin!" Then she cried out, "Mummy, no!" before a second shot was fired. Justin said, "I walked up to the fence. That's when I saw Charisse on the ground. And Callista had a rifle in her hand." He insisted that Callista then turned to him and said, "What the fuck have you done? You did this. You made me do this." Then Callista screamed at him to get a tarp and pointed the rifle at his head. Justin then claimed that he went back to the shed for 5, maybe 10 minutes. His stories changed. But after he came out of the shed, both Callista and Charlisse's body were gone. So Callista had grabbed her 78-pound daughter along with a rifle, and without a trace or sound, she had mysteriously vanished, according to Justin. Justin also claimed that Callista had somehow managed to get her daughter's body into the barrel on her own before she then took off. All the while, he was rolling a joint for himself. He would also later say that that night he had to cry himself to sleep. Please. And another unbelievable part of this story is that Justin not only claimed that Callista had been able to put Charisse in the barrel without him knowing, but she had also cut up a square of bloodied ground and put it in the barrel with her daughter. This was an unnecessarily invented narrative to explain why bloodied grass and dirt had been found inside the barrel with Charisse. The next day, on January 13th, Justin loaded up what he claimed he thought was an empty barrel, which I'm not sure how that would happen because she's 78 pounds. You wouldn't think a barrel was empty if it weighed over 78 pounds. Get out of here, dude. He claimed that he had then stopped at Bunnings to gather some supplies for his caravan. Justin also admitted that he had lied to police about any criminal associates and the auctioneer, but claimed that Callista had actually made up these stories and he was just going along with it. Justin's mother also testified for the defense at his trial. She said that while she could not recollect many phone calls from the time, she did remember a phone call that had taken place on January 12th. Ann Mee's story was that her son had called her that night and told her that he was going to pick up Callista and Charisse from the caravan park, and they were all headed back to the Mount Wilson home. She told the jury that she was not happy about this. And in the background of this phone call, she heard someone say, "Narelli, it's only one night." When she was asked who this voice belonged to, she said it was cheeky, so it had to have been Charisse. But in the footage of Ann Mee's questioning by police, she had told them that she had heard nothing in the background of that phone call. Ann Mee would also say in court that the relationship between Callista and her daughter was not what it was supposed to be, claiming that she was often aggressive towards Charisse. But here's what Charlisse's grandfather and guardian, Clinton Mutton, said.
Despite the distance, Charlize's relationship with her mum was very loving and unconditional. Charlize would cry at times, saying that she missed her mother and she looked forward to communicating with her. He said the 9-year-old would often video call with the couple. She said that she really liked Justin and she asked me if I thought he would be a good dad. The grandfather believed the pair was clean when they allowed their grandchild to visit for Christmas in 2021. Mr. Mutton revealed his final conversation with Charlize in early January, about a week before the murder. He said she was happy, in good spirits, and told him she loved him.
Now, it was also said that Ann Mee had actually gone to the police station on February 17th, 2022, and had been shown photos of the firearms that police retrieved from the woods. The detective reportedly told Ann Mee that the fatal gunshot appeared consistent with a rifle round. Ann Mee had then said to him, "You said she was shot twice, wasn't she? That's what's been reported." The detective then told Ann Mee that police had only reported that Charlize had died from a gunshot injury and had not disclosed any other information. She also described her supposed-to-be future granddaughter as a lovely little beautiful girl who did not deserve to have her life cut short. At the end of his trial, Justin Stein was found guilty of Charlize's murder, and he is to be sentenced on August 23, 2024. And Charlize's biological father, Scott Hensby, posted an emotional farewell to his daughter on Facebook, saying, "Goodbye, you beautiful little girl. I love you so much. I miss you every day. You have captured the hearts of the nation and the world, and now those hearts are breaking with mine." He continued, "This doesn't happen. Kids need to be safe. What is wrong with you people? We will get the answers for you, baby, and we will honor you properly. This is not the end of your story." Charisse Mutton's former primary school, Tweed Heads Public in North South Wales, also made a shrine for her at the entrance of the school where people left flowers, cards, and other gifts. Additionally, they held a candlelight vigil for the little girl on January 19th, 2022.
Her entire life revolved around those kids. I don't know what broke. I don't know what changed. I wish I could say that she relapsed. I don't even know that.
Elijah Vu was born on August 20th, 2020, to his mother, Katrina Bauer, and his father, Jimmy Vu. He also had an older sister who was born in May of 2017, and she was on the autism spectrum. Elijah loved trucks, dinosaurs, and his favorite color was blue. He also really enjoyed going to the beach. He was said to be a very sweet and loving child. Now, Elijah's mother, Katrina, had a history of mental illness, criminal records in multiple states, and a history of erratic behavior. She had also suffered from a traumatic brain injury. Her family would say that her story would change depending on who her audience was. Elijah's mother and father had split up when he was only 6 months old in February of 2021. This had come after his father, Jimmy, had been arrested on a slew of charges. He had then later been convicted on these charges, which included physically harming a child, possession of a firearm as a convicted felon, battery, disorderly conduct, possession of THC with intent to distribute, and possession of methamphetamine. He's been serving time in prison at the Oshkosh Correctional Institute since the beginning of 2023. Throughout Elijah's parents' relationship, Jimmy was said to be abusive towards Katrina. She had even photographed and then posted to her social media a number of bruises that she had received at his hands. But after they split up, Katrina no longer had a place to live, so she ended up losing custody of both Elijah and his sister in April of 2021. She would end up getting that custody back exactly a year later in April of 2022. And during that time that they had been taken away from their mother, the two children had been placed into foster care. Then, in November of 2022, Katrina began hanging out with her ex-boyfriend, who was named Jesse Vang. Jesse Vang had a criminal history dating back to when he was only a teen. His convictions included child abuse, bail jumping, disorderly conduct, and even a federal drug trafficking charge that he had spent 3 years in prison for. Jesse had obtained his child abuse charge back in 2002, and it had come after he had beat up a fellow juvenile inmate who was 5 years younger than him. Jesse was 17 at the time, and the other inmate was 12. Katrina and Jesse also had a troubling history together. Back in 2015, police had responded to an American Inn in Appleton, where Katrina had hidden herself inside a bathroom, then attracted the attention of staff, who had called police. When authorities arrived, Elijah's mother told them that she was being essayed by 2 Asian males, one of them being Jesse. She also reported that the men had told her that she was their property, and detailed how she would be transported to a house near Minneapolis, where she would sell herself for drugs and money. 2 months after the assault, Katrina would ask police to not investigate it, saying that she was now with Jimmy Vu, and Jimmy would take care of it. Because according to her, Jimmy was an alpha, and Jesse was under him in some sort of structure. Prosecutors, however, still ended up charging Jesse in the motel incident. He was charged with conspiracy to commit human trafficking and second-degree assault. But the state would eventually dismiss the charges against him because he had actually been indicted in federal court and detained in Minnesota for charges of conspiracy to distribute methamphetamine. So why Katrina started seeing him again, I have no idea. And you'll be even more shocked and confused when you hear what she also asked him to do later on, especially knowing this history. Recently, Katrina had been having a hard time dealing with both Elijah and his sister. Since his sister was on the autism spectrum, she would often have violent outbursts as well as meltdowns. This was becoming both emotionally and physically draining for Katrina, and she herself would even admit that it had gotten to the point where all she did was yell at her daughter. A neighbor of Katrina's would also confirm that this was true. All she ever did was yell. However, it was at both children that she would constantly yell at. This neighbor had lived beneath Katrina and her 2 children in an apartment in Wisconsin Dells, and said she had to call the cops a number of times because of how loudly she could hear Katrina screaming at her children. She also said that she knows a number of other tenants had called police as well, because not only had they heard her screaming at the kids, but they had also seen her yanking them around by their arms. And every time police went over to the home to check on things, Elijah and his sister would only get screamed at even more once they left. Oftentimes, neighbors would see the children in their bedroom banging on the window, waving and wanting to just say hi because they were so lonely and isolated. So Katrina was clearly far from being a good mother. But then, in February of 2024, she did something completely stupid and absolutely illogical. Katrina called up her boyfriend Jesse and asked him to take her son Elijah for a few days to teach him how to be a man. He's 3 years old. Just 3. But according to Katrina, the toddler had been exhibiting bad behaviors, and she was hoping that Jesse could help turn those around. So on February 12, 2024, Katrina dropped off her son Elijah with convicted felon and known human trafficker, Jesse Vang. Jesse lived in an apartment on the 3900 block of Mishkot Road in Two Rivers. The mother told Jesse that she planned on picking Elijah back up 11 days later, on February 23rd. But 3 days prior to her doing this, Elijah would go missing. On the morning of February 20th at 11 a.m., Jesse called 911 and said that the toddler was missing. The last time he had seen Elijah was around 8 a.m. when he had told the little boy to stand by the bed and pray. Jesse had then fallen asleep, and when he awoke hours later, Elijah was gone. An Amber Alert for the 3-year-old was immediately sent out, and the search for Elijah began. Both Jesse Vang and Elijah's mother Katrina would be brought in by detectives for questioning. When police spoke with Jesse, who was the last person believed to have seen Elijah, he told them that the night prior, he had changed Elijah's diaper around 8 or 9 p.m., and then he had put the little boy in a timeout prior to his bedtime. Then, while Elijah stood in place taking his punishment, Jesse went into the other room, watched a movie, had 3 beers, and popped a muscle relaxant as a sleep aid. The next morning, Jesse had woken up around 7:30 a.m. and gotten his own special needs son ready for school. He had then walked him to his bus stop. When he had left the house, Elijah was asleep on the futon. And when Jesse returned at 8 a.m., he and Elijah had breakfast together. Following this, the little boy had been instructed to kneel at the foot of his bed and pray, while Jesse went in the other room and fell asleep, leaving Elijah completely unattended. Then, when Jesse had awoken from his nap hours later, Elijah was nowhere to be seen, and the boy's red and blue blanket was also gone. When detectives asked Jesse about the discipline that Elijah had received, he would tell them that it often consisted of Elijah standing in one spot for 1 to 3 hours and either praying or saying over and over, "I'm sorry, Mommy." Additionally, police would find out that the 3-year-old was not yet potty trained and, get this, still mostly bottle fed. Elijah also had not been allowed to play with the one toy that Jesse had in his home, because he was in a constant state of timeout during those 11 days he was supposed to be there. Ridiculous. Then, when authorities began to speak with Elijah's mother, Katrina, they started to get conflicting statements. both in regards to her whereabouts, as well as the events leading up to Elijah's disappearance. Katrina would also try to defend her choice to send Elijah to Jesse's home in the first place, saying that she had discussed with Jesse the limits on the punishment that she did not want to see him using on her son. But the truth was, Katrina knew the disciplinary tactics that Jesse used, and she had sent her 3-year-old over there for disciplinary reasons. She also knew the lack of care that Elijah would receive while in Jesse's home. As part of their investigation, detectives would also search both Jesse and Katrina's cell phones. It was here that they would discover Katrina had been lying to them in regards to her whereabouts because she had actually been present in 2 rivers on some of the days that Elijah had also been there at Jesse's home. Cell phone records also indicated that Jesse had informed Katrina of an incident on February 17th, in which Elijah had overfilled his diaper. This led to Jesse giving him a cold shower as punishment. Apparently, Katrina had actually been at Jesse's home shortly after this incident on February 17th, and she admitted to seeing her son at that time. She had also been at Jesse's home the day prior, February 16th. Another text exchange was found between the two, in which Jesse tells Katrina to trust him and says, "I'ma make sure he hates me and being here." She replies back, "Don't want him to hate you, just fear you." Jesse then said to her, "He did fear me, but he didn't respect me. Now I'm making him respect me." There was also a photograph that had been deleted that was recovered from Katrina's phone. It was dated February 14th. It showed Elijah blindfolded, lying down on a bed, and he had what appeared to be bruises on his head, neck, and arm. There was also another photo from the next day, February 15th, that shows Elijah standing in a corner with just a diaper on that was full, and he's praying. Authorities were carrying out an intense investigation trying to locate Elijah. Their extensive search of the area included dogs being brought in, drones being flown over the area, and rivers being searched. The 2 rivers police vowed that they were leaving no stone unturned. They would additionally end up conducting searches in nearby landfills, as well as Avery Salvage Yard, the same one that belongs to Stephen Avery's family. Hundreds of volunteers would also join in the search efforts for little Elijah. The hunt for the toddler would end up expanding beyond Manitowoc County and into surrounding counties. In addition to the search effort, people also showed their support by placing blue and green ribbons and lights all around the town. Blue was Elijah's favorite color, and green is a symbol of hope for the recovery of missing children. Just days after Elijah had been reported as missing, his 31-year-old mother, Katrina, was arrested and charged with child neglect. She was held on a $15,000 cash bail. 39-year-old Jesse Vang was, of course, also arrested, and he was charged with child neglect. He was held on a $20,000 cash bail. Then, a few weeks later in March, Katrina's initial charge of child neglect was changed to chronic child neglect. After it was found that on February 16th, Katrina had left Elijah all alone in Jesse's apartment, while she and Jesse had gone to various locations throughout the city of Manitowoc. An additional charge of child neglect was also added, and this was in regards to her 6-year-old daughter. The reason for this charge was because evidence had surfaced that Katrina had left her 6-year-old alone in a car for approximately an hour on February 14th. During this time, the car was turned off in cold weather. It was February in Wisconsin after all, and the temperatures were only between 27 and 30 degrees that day. And the reason why she had left her daughter in the car was so that she could go into Jesse's apartment and have sex with him. This was discovered after police had found a text message in which Katrina told Jesse that she was going to leave the car off so that no lights would be on and it wouldn't attract any attention. She knew what she was doing was wrong, but she did it anyways. 2 additional charges of obstruction of justice were also handed down to Katrina, and this was based on the fact that she had initially told Jesse to not cooperate with authorities in finding her son. If that doesn't scream guilt, I don't know what does. During the same court hearing in which this information was revealed, Katrina's attorney also filed a motion to have her $15,000 bail reduced down to just a signature bond. He claimed that she was not a danger to the public or a flight risk. Katrina's mother, Jody Bauer, however, disagreed with this sentiment, and a statement that she had written was read aloud in court. In it, Jody explained why she thought her daughter's bail was justified, and she did not believe it should be lowered. She claimed that Katrina had struggled with anxiety and depression for years, and was known to have erratic behavior. Jody herself said she had been a victim of her daughter's verbal and mental abuse for a long time. The mistreatment was so severe that Jody asked the court to issue a no-contact order if her daughter happened to get released on bail. Katrina's mother also disclosed to the court that her daughter had cut off all ties from the family in October of 2022, following years of her volatile behavior. In one part of Katrina's mother's statement, it even said, "At this time, rather than aligning and locating her son, Katrina feels the need to reiterate what a good guy Jesse is. By aligning with him, she could potentially have access to his extended family and the ability to flee the area." Based on Katrina's mother's statement, as well as Katrina's actions during her son's disappearance, the motion to lower her bail was denied. As it should have. In my opinion, she should have been held on a higher bail. Police were still providing daily online updates on the search for Elijah. After a week of no success in finding him, the FBI began to offer a reward of $15,000 for any information that led to Elijah or the arrest and conviction of anyone involved in his disappearance. Manitowoc County Crime Stoppers was also offering a $10,000 reward. Then, on March 4th, authorities asked the public to search any video surveillance footage they may have because they were looking for a vehicle of interest. They announced that it was a beige four-door 1997 Nissan Altima that bore a Wisconsin tag starting with A and ending in 0. At this time, authorities actually already had the Altima in their possession, and they confirmed that it did not belong to either Jesse or Katrina. But they were hoping that the public had footage that was captured on February 19th, anytime between 2 p.m. and 9 p.m., the day before Elijah had gone missing. There's no further information on this vehicle of interest that I could find, but I'm assuming police believed that either Jesse or Katrina or both of them used this vehicle to dispose of Elijah's body somewhere. Around the same time, photos were released that showed Elijah and Jesse on surveillance video, just days before Elijah had disappeared. The owner of Ross Auto Services recognized Jesse Vang's name when the news of Elijah's disappearance first broke. So he checked his records and found out that Jesse had actually been a recent customer. He had come in to get an ignition interlock system, which, if you don't know, is essentially a car breathalyzer. The owner of the repair shop remembers the two coming in and said that Elijah had been quiet and sat at a table with Jesse almost the entire time. He also said that he does not remember anything being off about either one of them. The owner had then looked back at his video surveillance footage and found footage of Jesse and Elijah walking into his shop on February 16th. There were also receipts that showed that Elijah and Jesse had been at a McDonald's, also in Two Rivers, that day. This was the same day that police had previously discovered that Katrina had actually been in town. As the search for Elijah continued with no luck, his blue and red blanket was found on Goodwin Road, about 3.7 miles away from where he was last seen. This was the blanket that Jesse had told authorities Elijah had gone missing with. Also at this point, the reward for information leading to the discovery of Elijah or the arrests of anyone involved in his disappearance had risen up to $40,000, thanks to multiple local donors.
The day an Amber Alert went out burned into Jody's memory. But what really stuck out, how her daughter reacted.
She was calm. I think the investigators had called me that night, said she was cold. Whether she was detached or in denial, I don't know.
Investigators say Katrina sent Elijah to stay with her boyfriend, Jesse Vang, in Two Rivers to learn how to be a man. Vang told police when he woke up from a nap February 20th, the little boy was gone.
It was the mama bear, the anger, the instinct, the hysteria that was missing that it just hit me wrong.
When you did talk to her, is she asking, where's Elijah? Is she still wanting to know where he is?
At the time, she was still believing he just walked out the door.
It's a theory Two Rivers police told 12 News they ruled out. They also don't think the 3-year-old was abducted.
I don't think Trina knows more, because I think she would have broke by now.
Jody says she thinks getting answers relies on her daughter receiving mental health care.
Until we get her in touch with what's real and what's not real, we're not going to know.
Then, in July of 2024, Katrina would again ask the court to lower her bail from $15,000 down to only $5,000. But this was again denied by the judge.
Katrina Bauer appeared in Manitowoc County Court over Zoom. Her new attorney, Amber Gratz, requesting bond lowered from $15,000 to $5,000. Katrina Bauer is the mother of 3-year-old Elijah Vu, who went missing on February 20th. She's been charged with child neglect, but not directly in his disappearance.
I think that is sufficient to ensure her appearance, especially given her ties to the community and the state.
The state opposed the motion, and Elijah's father, Jimmy Vu, also addressed the court.
I'd like to ask you to deny bail due to the fact that my son is still missing, and we need answers. And I think Katrina Bauer has the answer.
Judge Robert DeWayne denied a bond reduction, but he did modify a condition barring Bauer from contact with children under the age of 18, allowing supervised contact with her children only.
In this case, supervised contact would have to be arranged, or it wouldn't be allowed.
As the search continued, Elijah's 4th birthday was celebrated at a community event in Appleton on August 25th. Then, just recently, on September 13th, 2024, Two Rivers police announced that human remains had been found by a hunter on private property just a few days earlier. And it had been confirmed that they belonged to Elijah. The thickly wooded area where the remains had been found is only about 3 miles away from the home of Jesse Vang.
Thank you all for being here. Last Saturday, Sheriff Hartwig called me immediately upon learning his deputies were responding to investigate a report of skeletal remains found by someone in the town of Two Rivers. With night falling near, the entire area was secured while a variety of resources were gathered to investigate. Ultimately, a forensic anthropologist with the Wisconsin State Crime Laboratories was able to confirm a skull and bones as human remains. On Sunday, my staff assisted the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Office, Department of Justice, Division of Criminal Investigation, and the Wisconsin Crime Lab with recovery of those remains and any associated evidence. The intentions of our team were to first notify family of the discovery and then alert the public. Prior to that, however, reports went out on social media and other platforms, some of which were false and most of which had yet to be confirmed. While we do feel it's important to share information with the public, our first priority is Elijah and the integrity of the investigation, as well as communication with the family. These are the facts that I can share. The remains were found on private property by a person getting his land ready for the hunting season. This land was not on Manitou Girl Scout camp property, but rather a thick wooded area with heavy underbrush, just to the north of Manitou. This location is just over 3 miles northwest of where he originally was reported missing. This area had been searched several times, as had been reported, by law enforcement searches, by private searches, by the landowner, by air, and with various search and rescue teams. Despite all those previous efforts and throughout different conditions and changing seasons, we continued searching and even had continued searches scheduled as early as next week. The remains found by the hunter and recovered by law enforcement were taken to the Wisconsin Crime Lab for DNA testing to identify the person. It is with a heavy heart that I announce to you today Those remains were identified as Elijah Vu.
So the area where Elijah's body was found had actually been searched several times. So either it was missed multiple times or it was placed there after the area had already been cleared.
The woman who keeps her horse at this property now tells us Katrina Bauer, Elijah's mom, once lived at this property right across the street from where law enforcement says a hunter discovered those human remains Saturday. 12 News has obtained a photo that shows Bauer holding little Elijah in the hand of a little girl who we are not identifying. Her mother, Elijah's grandma, confirmed that her daughter did indeed live there for a time. The blue railing and cement front steps in the photo match the property right across the street from that wooded area where a deer hunter found skeletal remains. Take a look, News Chopper 12 with the exclusive view of investigators combing through the wooded area across the street Sunday night in rural Manitowoc County. A mobile command unit set up several law enforcement vehicles on the property near Camp Manitou.
Elijah's mother, Katrina, also came out with a statement after her son's body had been discovered. She said that she was just devastated by the recent news, and she had continued to have hope that he would be found alive. Since the discovery of little Elijah's body, a memorial outside of his former home has continued to grow as the community mourns his loss. Police have not yet provided a timeline for when they might determine or release his cause of death.